Welcome to the Heroic Voice. It is June 6th, 2026. It's D-Day,
Hmm.
well, the anniversary of D-Day, which maybe, I'm here with Jerry Beck, who has made something of a career of rescuing and restoring old animated flicks from Warner Brothers, from
Everybody,
Woody Woodpecker
everybody.
stuff, all kinds of stuff.
Hmm.
Uh, and I truly appreciate the effort you've made. That old material does need to be rescued and
Yes,
re-released
yes.
to the public.
Yeah, as you and I, the comic book world, there's a lot of guys doing, or gals and guys doing, reprints of classic comics, comic books, comic strips. We're living in a golden age of those reprints, and
Mhm.
you know,
This is the Heroic Voice, where I talk to comic book creators and other interesting people on a variety of subjects. I am Dennis Maloney, publisher of the Heroic Multiverse, where we feature good girl and bad girl artwork, super babes, and all kinds of Silver Agey style stories.
so are we starting our conversation?
Yes, yes.
Okay. All
Let
right.
us begin. Tell
Okay.
people, if you would, a little bit about yourself and how you got into, doing the recovery and restoration of all of this classic material.
Well, without getting into my insane long story, I, was a kid in the 60s who read comic books, from 8 years old at least, watched Batman when it first went on in 1966. Was a big comic book freak. And in fact, I lived in the New York area in Flushing and Queens near the World's Fair. And uh, when I heard there was a thing called a comic book convention in 1968. It was in the papers, the second day of the convention, one of those early Phil Seuling ones.
Hmm.
And I was, let's see, I was 13, and one of my grandparents, knowing I'm into comic books, showed me the article, and I don't know how I did it. In retrospect, I don't know why they let a 13, but 13 years old with about $2 in my pocket, I got on the subway, went into Manhattan, went to the Sunday of that con, the 1968 Comic Art Con, and my mind was blown, and the rest of my life opened up in front of me. I mean, this was a world I wanted to be in. So I love that. I love to draw. I went through high school. I drew comics personally, and I just for myself and my friends. And as I got older, I loved movies too, and I started collecting the old movie serials, of which a lot of are based on comics, Flash Gordon, Captain Marvel, and all of that. I went to the Comic Cons, and I ended up later in the 70s actually running the film rooms at Phil Seuling and creation conventions. I'm trying to keep my story comic book related, but
No
the,
need
the
to do that because
all
what I
right.
really want to talk about is the animation.
Yeah, okay. The what happened was I got into like I said, the movies and comics, and I somewhere along the line I felt that animation was maybe the place I should be because it was the combination of both. It was drawings and it was movies, and it
Hmm.
just sort of, so I got more into that, and long story short, I in those 1970s years, there was no internet. There was no internet. There was no, uh, books about the history of animation. We had Steranko's History of Comics. I'm sorry, I will stop talking about comics, but it does relate. But I mean, we had in the comic book world, histories that were coming out, slowly, all in color for a dime and all that. And the there was nothing in the world of animation that way. In fact, one more comic book reference. I was a big subscriber to RBCC, Rocket Blast Comic Collector,
Who
James Van
wasn't?
Nuys. Right. And my very first article, my very first anything printed was in an issue. I couldn't tell you the number right now of RBCC. It was an animation issue they did, and they had They had I think it was an ElfQuest or Wizards cover, and there's an article there by me about George Powell Puppetoons. That was my very first thing I ever wrote and got into print as an article about the history of animation. And from there, I did fanzines. I got involved with a book called Of Mice and Magic that Leonard Maltin. Me and Leonard worked on a book called Of Mice and Magic, which was a history of animated cartoons, and on and on and on. As far as, it's a complicated story, but the thing is, as far as restoration of cartoons, you know, uh, I learned early that animation, like comic books, sorry, were not aimed at children, back in the 30s and 40s and 50s. They were aimed at adults. They were aimed at anybody. They were entertainment. They were mass entertainment. The whole concept of them being for children was something that came after World War II for comics and really in the 1950s for animated cartoons. Because, they showed them in movie theaters, the cartoons,
Yeah.
and they were for everyone. And if you look back at the great Warner cartoons and others, Popeyes and others, there's a lot of references to what's going on at the time. It's there were things that they did in those cartoons that were again aimed at adult audiences, really. Not nothing X-rated, just they were not aimed at children, really. Yeah, there were a few things like the Casper cartoons, perhaps, but that was an unusual aspect, something like Casper. Mainly, it was grown-ups. The And then, even though I'd gotten into cartoons by watching them on weekend TV or weekday TV, local Channel 5, I now know they were running old 16 millimeter prints with splices and things.
Hmm.
And but it didn't matter. We loved the films, we loved the cartoons, we got into them. But
Well,
but as
Channel 5 was a special case because that was owned by Paramount. So they obviously had access to the entire library of Paramount
Well,
cartoons
maybe it was where you are in LA. Are you in
in
LA?
LA. Yeah.
In LA, it was owned by Paramount. You're right.
Yeah.
I grew up in New York, so we
Oh,
didn't,
right.
it
Right,
wasn't
right,
the
right, right.
case there. But the 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 things I noticed at one point that the Bugs Bunny show in prime time in
1960.
1960, yeah. And then the later subsequent Bugs Bunny Roadrunner hour on Saturday morning, I noticed that the quality of the cartoons looked better. They look like they were brand new, whereas
Hmm.
the ones on the local stations had this old quality, which I now know were the old 16 millimeter film prints with lines and splices. And so I as I got older and got really, really into this, that really fascinated me that I wanted to know why all these old cartoons didn't look so good. And I eventually got to see 35 millimeter Technicolor prints of the theatrical cartoons through film collectors and through museums and occasional rare shows in New York at the Museum of Modern Art, that kind of thing. And I began to realize I just felt that people need to see these cartoons the
The
way they were
originals.
originally presented.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, again, I'm sorry to do this. I feel like now I've got to apologize for
Don't
making
don't
comic book
apologize.
references, but it's like it's the difference between a coverless, beat up comic book and a beautiful
Yeah.
restoration of the artwork and brand new scans from the original art and blah blah blah. And so I really went out of my way, and it's been a long, long time now, because you just can't do this overnight. You can't do it at one studio overnight. This is the kind of thing that takes years of effort trying to convince the studios that own these things,
That there's a
to keep
market for it.
that
Yeah.
there's a market
They're
for
not
it.
going to do it otherwise.
The place that I was able to do that for real. I mean, at one point, let's say at one point I started doing live shows. And I do live shows. I've done them in New York. I've actually done them around the world. I do a lot of them in LA, at some of the repertory theaters. Before COVID, I mean, any theater you can think of, the New Art, the Egyptian, the LA, LACMA, the museum. And I've done that in New York too. I host programs of classic animation. I still do that. It's limited now. I do it mainly if I don't mean to get local here, but in LA we have the Old Town Music Hall. I do programs. What was the other place I do? I do programs at many other venues. I'm forgetting the other big one the New Beverly. The New Beverly, owned by Quentin Tarantino on Beverly Boulevard near La Brea. Once a month, we do a thing called Cartoon Club, and mainly Quentin has everything run at that theater is he owns a film print. He bought old drive-in prints of movies, the full features, and cartoons, and he
Yeah.
has like thousands of 35 millimeter, the original format cartoons. Some of them are in horrible shape, some of them are in great shape, and they're in what they call Technicolor, where the color is very vivid. And we, I curate. They allow me to come in and pick a program, and usually the second Saturday of every month. And it's the prints are all over the place. Like I say, they could be all, bad or good, but whatever. But we run old movies on the big screen the way it used to be. And I come out and I'll say a few words about the cartoons. I also teach at Cal Arts, UCLA, and other schools. So I mean, this is what I do, and I'm not even counting the 10 other things I do, like write books, write articles, consult to the studios, and help with the restoration process.
I know exactly what you're talking about. As it happens, back when I was at Caltech, I
Mhm.
was in charge of the Friday movie night.
Oh yeah.
And, we would show old movies every Friday night. And once or twice a year, right, I would gather up, a whole bunch of 35 millimeter cartoons,
Oh
usually from
wow.
Warner Brothers, right, and just run a
Right.
whole night of those classic cartoons.
I'll give you nostalgia. My very first job in the biz, and I've never been out of the biz since then. But I grew up in New York. I had to get a job right away. I went to school of visual arts, and I ended up getting jobs like on Wall Street, being a clerk, no big deal, nothing. While I worked on articles and worked with Leonard Maltin on that book of Mice and Magic. But my first job in the biz was at United Artists, which was actually unlike most of the other studios, they were almost completely in New York. They didn't have a back lot or anything, but they had a whole building, 18 floors in Times Square. And I worked at United Artists, and what did I do? I got myself into the 16 millimeter rental department to colleges, libraries, hospitals, prisons. We probably rented to your school, to Caltech. In fact, while I was working there, I'm going to hold up. They knew I was a cartoon nut, and they had all the really, really great cartoons. And they allowed
Wow.
me to do a little supplement to the catalog of a little cartoon catalog. And it's funny. I'll give you again. I'm sorry. I mean, that's my warning that I'm going to say a comic book reference. But we designed this little itsy bitsy catalog like a comic book.
Hmm.
Um, we got underground cartoonist and lifelong friend of mine, Leslie Cabarga, to do the artwork on the cover. And we got Leonard Maltin, who I was working with on that book, to do an intro on the inside. And it's in black and white. We did it like a comic book with slick paper and pulp paper on the inside.
Magazine-sized comic book.
Yes, and it's a magazine. Yes, the 35 cent slick,
Hmm.
but it was pulp paper, and it's lists all the cartoons that we had for rent, and but that shows you where I was right from the beginning of all of this, um, and that was really the beginning of getting involved with film and film restoration. Um, we didn't really restore anything back then. We used the 16 millimeter. We made new prints the same ones that the TV stations got. But I connected with home video, which was just starting around this late 70s, early 80s period. And on home video, actually, I looked at some of the home video from VHS tapes from like 1980, and they're horrible. They are the 16 splicey. It's unbelievable they released that to the public. But it was because of that I began to talk to people about, well, maybe we should go back to the original negatives or something. And I got involved with that. And very slowly, I got a partner who worked in the home video department. I'm still working with that person today. He shifted from United Artists to let me see, he worked for Turner and MGM. After that, he moved to LA. I moved to LA for different reasons. And he still works for Warner Brothers today. He's George Feltenstein is his name, and he's like the head of the library. He's a big VP there, and he's been in charge of the home video, which includes today that's called Warner Archive Collection, and that's the
Yes.
group that does the classic movies of feature
Hmm.
films. He always puts old cartoons. He's a big cartoon fan, but he knows me from those days, and he lets me play with the collection and pick the films out, and we work to restore these things from the original negs. We've done most of them for Warner Brothers cartoons and MGM cartoons, Tom and Jerry and Tex Avery and Popeye. These are a lot of the things that the studio owns. They own more than the Hanna-Barbera library. These are all things that they've acquired or have throughout the years. Uh, like it or not, they might be heading for having the entire Paramount library soon, which would include
Yes.
the Max Fleischer cartoons of the 30s, the famous studio. This is a set I've
Famous
worked on
Studios.
recently.
Little Lulu.
Yeah, they're on here. This is a great little set that is just about 20 cartoons restored from the original negatives. This is brand new. This is just the beginning of the restoration of that library. And Thad Komorowski is the producer. I want to mention his name. The the yeah, and of course Paramount has that. They have the Terry Tunes, which is Mighty Mouse and Heckle and Jekyll. They have a bunch of other things. And so personally, whether Warner's gets them or not, we're beginning to work with Paramount finally, after all these time. But if they get together, and if they don't let George go, and I hope that doesn't happen, nobody does, because he's very knowledgeable of both libraries, of all the film libraries. So it'd be a godsend, a thing to the world if George is in charge of those things. And but we hope to be able to do all of these cartoons. And of course, I've been involved, and I'll do a quick plug. I'm leaving out so much detail, but I am involved, and I've been involved from the beginning with Me TV Tunes, which is a channel, a broadcast channel that I helped, you know, help. I just helped. I'm going to just say I helped. I was a consultant, and the idea there
Is that
is
Channel
now
13?
that what
Is
what
that Channel 13 here in LA?
It's a sub-channel of Channel 9,
Nine.
and it's on three or four broad, it's what they call a sub-channel, like
Hmm.
Channel 9, 3, you know what I mean? I don't
Yeah,
actually,
yeah, yeah.
you can go online to metvtunes.com, tells you exactly wherever you live, where you can get it. If you have cable, if you don't have cable, it's a broadcast network. You can actually get it for free with an antenna. And the thing is, um, what my job was basically, look, I've been working with restoring the cartoons at Universal and Warner Brothers and all the studios. A lot of them are available now. They're sitting there. And I spoke to the people at MeTV, which is a great channel unto itself. It's a retro, nostalgia television channel. You know, Andy Griffith, The Twilight Zone,
Hmm.
Adam 12, and all that. And they started running Looney Tunes. And I said, well, you're running Adam 12, you're running Dragnet. That's Universal. He goes, yeah. He goes, well, they have all the Woody Woodpecker cartoons. They've got all the, Harvey tunes. They go,
Andy Panda.
yeah. And so they acquired that. And then I said, well, you're showing the Three Stooges, on Saturday night. That Sony has the rights to Mr. Magoo. You can show the old
Oh.
Magoo cartoon. I happen to know all this because I've
What
worked for the.
about Dick Tracy's Crime Stoppers?
Well, that's actually it's UPA. You're right, and it's owned by. It's a long story on a lot of these because the
But
rights were
I do want to
divided.
before we wrap up today, I also want to get into the World War II
I'm going to
cartoons with
answer your
Gene.
question about Dick Tracy,
Yes.
though, but go ahead. I'm just going to say that Universal technically owns those for a variety of reasons without getting into it. But unfortunately, I don't think they'll rerun those cartoons
No.
because if you think about it.
I know
Yeah,
why.
you've already thought about it. So,
And that's why I want to get to the World War II cartoons and
okay,
also talk briefly about the banned cartoons.
okay.
In
I got
particular,
news.
the one that really annoys me is the one that featured a version of Fats Waller that's been banned. You know which one I'm talking
I
about.
think you mean Tin Pan Alley
Yes, that's
Cats,
the
but
one.
they're right. There's several with that a caricature of that, but yeah. Um, Tin Pan. Well, what do you mean by it annoys you? What do you mean?
Well, it was Fats Waller. It was clearly Fats Waller,
Oh
right?
yeah, nobody's
That was
denying
that was
that.
not racist. That was what he looked like the whole time.
Oh, I see your point. Okay, yeah. Good call. Well, here's the good news, but it's not really news. I don't want anybody going on the internet going, they're going to put that out. No, hold on. Here's the good news. Within the last year, me and George Feltenstein have been fighting the battle internally for years, decades, about getting these things out. We have made the case often. They're not aimed at kids. These cartoons are gems of the library.
Hmm.
Yes, you release Gone with the Wind and Day at the Races, and
And you don't release Coal Black?
well, that's a case we've made. The problem is it's a cartoon, and the studio doesn't want now. No, don't worry, this story is going on. They don't really want that to be. They don't want parents to call up and go, "Why are you putting this out?" Here's the story. Oh, this has been announced, so I can say it. After all this time and going back to them every year and making the case, we've kind of won the case finally. And what did we win? We finally convinced them that the people buying physical media, the people buying this are not moms for their kids. It's not kids. It's not teenagers even. Well, maybe it is, but
It's
it's
me.
it's right. It's me and you and older people who remember them and understand the context. We might have a bonus thing on the discs that might explain that. We're aiming these at adults. We're not aiming them at kids. It's so let us release things and make money for the company and let us and so so the good news is, as you may know and as you may own, I don't have it to hold up in front of me here, but about a few months ago we released the complete Tom and Jerry, every MGM Tom and Jerry cartoon with uncut and every one of them. And as some of you know, there's a handful, maybe there's about 10 or 15 or 20 that have a lady of the house
Yes,
who's
the
cleaning the
maid.
house at that moment. It's her house, perhaps. We don't know. We just know that there's a lady there and her skin is dark. And really, there's no issue here. But, it's been a problem. And they have said, okay. We do now know that kids and moms are not buying these. We get it. We know it. Go do what you want, at least for
Yay.
now. So the first thing we did was put out all the Tom and Jerry's, and that was a big hit with the right people, meaning people who wanted to buy it. We're in an era where the sales, like comic books, are less and less, and so on what they call physical media. Um, but I mean, those of you out there who know, as you do, um, physical media, you never know what's going to show or what we can't show on MeTV Tunes or what we can't show on TV. And have it, buy it yourself. Have it so you can enjoy it or show it to whoever you want. That's what we advocate.
Yes.
Um, my goal is to just get these things out there, whether it's on TV, whether every episode is there or not. I'm sorry, but we are working on it. We're working our best to get all of these things out. So we are doing that, and I will say the potential for cartoons we couldn't release before, Looney Tunes and other studios, we may be able to release in the next, year or two or three as we keep putting out new releases. We are working to, I want all of them out personally.
Is
So
there going to be a complete Popeye?
yes. Well, complete Popeye of yeah, the ones we have the rights to. We
Uh-huh.
the ones you're talking about are
I'm talking about the Fleischer cartoons
oh,
and
oh, okay. The Fleischer cartoons, as you know, have been put out on DVD.
mhm.
And I'm not authorized to announce any major news on your show, but I will say it's on. We have a list. We have a bucket list, but it's not just a bucket list. It's a list we're serious. And I will say it's on that list for Blu-ray. And
Are
I'm gonna
they
just
in
leave
black and white or
in
did you
black
put the
and white. Just
good,
so you
excellent,
know.
because the
No,
colorized
just so you
versions didn't
know.
really work.
No, no, as you may or may not know, we did restore them, um, and and all of them, including all the wartime ones and all the ones with Native American Indians, that are Popeye, they're all, and we did the 40s, the 1940s, all of them till 1949, which do include a few that have people who might look a little like the lady in the Tom and Jerry cartoons.
Uh-huh.
And so we have put those out. When you said, "Are you putting them all out?" I thought you meant that we have not put out the 1950s ones,
No, those were later.
which we are
Okay.
working on. So,
I remember watching Tom Hatton's show, right? He
yep.
said, and he was really happy. We've got new Popeye cartoons. They're going to be coming. And
Ooh,
I was looking at them when they came and said, these are not that good.
right,
Even though I was a little kid, I
right.
saw the difference
Oh
immediately.
yeah. Oh yeah. The yeah, well, you're talking about the 1960s, the
Yeah.
60s, not the
Oh,
50s,
the
the 60s.
60s. Well,
Yeah. You're talking about
uh,
the ones they made like something like I forgot the number, but it's like 200 it's more than that. It's like 260 or some number like that. 260 5, 6, 7 minute cartoons in within like a year or
yeah,
so.
like 5 or 6 different studios working on
Yeah,
the
they had to
project.
get in all these studios from around the world. Um, it's it's there are people who like them, but most people don't like them. And there's some horrifying ones. I do a show at Comic-Con in San Diego. I do a program every year called The Worst Cartoons Ever. I've been doing it for over 20 years now. This year it'll be a Thursday night in the evening, and we show cartoons that are so bad they're funny. I don't show any of those Popeyes, I have to admit, because we show worse stuff. Mostly what we show, just so you know, are we don't show Hanna-Barbera. We show mostly cartoons that most people don't even know about that were from the 1950s and early 60s. Things like you'll probably know, like Clutch Cargo and Space Angel.
Oh,
You know what I'm
yeah,
talking about. And
yeah.
yeah, we show more obscure things than that. We do show one thing that's from a major studio that was on a major network, and that was the Patty Freeling's NBC Saturday morning show, Super President, because it's
Oh,
so bad. That one is really, really hilariously bad. And that's the point. We show things that are funny, funny
do you have
bad.
Rudy Kazooie?
We don't run that. That's technically not even we have run it though. Oh no, no, wait. That's a puppet show. I'm sorry. Rudy Kazooie's a puppet show. But you might be thinking of Winky Dink, which is what I
Winky
was.
Dink and you. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
And
you put a vellum sheet over your TV and
yeah, yeah.
draw.
I found one that was pretty bad and funny. So I when I say funny, I don't mean intentionally funny. I mean unintentionally. I run, for example, a lot of superhero ones. Like I run one called Mighty Mr. Titan, which is a physical fitness superhero from
Don't
the early
remember that one.
60s. Most people don't, I've never even heard of it. It's done by the same studio that did Colonel Bleep. Did you
Oh,
ever
I
see
liked
Colonel
Colonel
Bleep?
Bleep.
Colonel Bleep is good. I don't run those.
Yeah.
But the same studio did this thing called Mighty Mr. Titan, which is ridiculous. And oh, I don't know. I show Johnny Cypher in the Dimension Zero. Did you ever hear that?
Nope.
That's a science fiction cartoon made by the Joe Oriolo studio that did the Mighty Hercules.
And Felix
And
the Cat.
I don't run that because they're too good.
They are good.
I run
Voiced by Jack Mercer,
Rocket
too.
Robin Hood.
Yeah, the Felix the Cats were voiced by Jack Mercer. He
That's
did
right.
all the voices.
No, those aren't bad. I mean, I
No.
have a criteria of what is something that makes what makes it worthy of getting into my show. It has to be unintentionally funny. Here's another, sorry, comic book thing. I was reading one of my favorite fanzines, pretty much the only one I read anymore is Alter Ego by Roy
Uh-huh.
Thomas. And Roy did an article. on a comic book that he liked as a kid. I don't know how he saw it. I don't know anything about it, but he wrote an article about Chris Welkin, Planeteer. It's a science fiction. It was based on something like a radio show or a pulp novel. I don't know what it was based on, but it was a comic. It's very popular. I looked on the internet. It's very popular in Australia. All right. But I found out in my research of 20 years on worst cartoons that there was a Chris Welkin Planeteer animated show, and I found it, and it's so obscure. I found 2 episodes of it. It's horrible. It's so bad. It's funny. And I ran an episode of it last year. I'm going to run another episode of it this year. But that's it. It's amazing. I've done more research on the worst cartoons than or equivalent to my research on the best cartoons.
Which do you think is better, Tom Terrific or Larry at Sam?
Tom Terrific, and I mean, I got to know the creator of Tom Terrific, and that was Gene Deitch, who is a really great artist and great cartoonist. His masterpiece, so to speak, would be Tom Terrific, which you might know or not know was based on a comic strip that Gene did called Terrible Thompson, and and they collected those. Fantagraphics put out a paperback of Gene Deitch's Terrible Thompson comic strip. You can find it online. And you'll see it if you know Tom Terrific. It looks like Tom Terrific. And what he did was when he got to CBS bought Terry Toons from
Right.
Paul Terry, who created it, and they had a TV network to run, and they wanted the cartoon library to put on television, and they had Captain Kangaroo on
Hmm.
weekday mornings, and they gave orders to their new cartoon studio. We need some kind of cartoon here, which was slightly it wasn't educational at all, but they, as you know, it's a serialized. Each adventure was 5 chapters.
Very limited animation.
Very limited animation, but if you look at it again, it's very well done. It's very
Yes.
clever in the way it looks. They did things like they had a 1 minute out of 5 minutes of the cartoon. The first minute is the theme song, fully animated, by the way, but it's 1 minute of five. Then the next 30 seconds is a recap of the previous episode where they use the same footage over, and then the end of the episode is 30 seconds of what's coming next. So there's like 4 minutes of animation, and even then it's limited. But honestly, they I've watched them. They'll if it needed to be fully animated. I mean, that's rare. They then fully animated it, but it is limited animation. But
Yeah.
it's very well done.
Jerry,
Um, yeah,
we
and
are
Larry and
running out of
Sam.
time. I want to do
Now,
this again, and I want to talk to you when we do this again, if it's okay with you. I want to talk to you about Time for Beanie, right?
oh right, we didn't talk
Because
about
that is near and dear to my heart, but we're not having time to do that today. So
Sorry. It's
let
okay because the story of what's going on with Time for Beanie will continue, and maybe there'll be news and more updates at that time. But let's tell everybody that was originally a puppet show, and
yes, it was.
that's what I'm involved with right now on Restoration. It did become an animated cell animation cartoon, which I love, and we'd love to get it on that
Oh,
ATV
that was
too.
wonderful. It was only one season, but it
Yeah.
was gorgeous. And what Bob Clampett was doing was he
Yep.
was actually animating the puppets, right?
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
he was not treating Beanie and Cecil
No.
as animated characters. He was doing animation of the puppets. And there's one classic scene in there where a swordfish cuts
Yeah.
around. You remember
And you
that
see the
scene?
guy's hairy
The
arm.
guy's hairy
Yeah.
arm.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, who was it
That's
who voiced that? I know the name. It was
well, originally on the puppet show that you love so much, the original puppet show, the
was it
Beanie
Freeberg?
was Dawes Butler.
Dawes Butler.
And if
Right.
and then and but Cecil was Stan Freberg,
Right. Stan. Yeah.
right?
I
Now
remember
that
Stan
was not the
Freeberg.
case on the animated show,
No,
but yes,
because Stan left, right? He
yeah.
had dispute with Bob.
Yeah,
And
and Dawes was pretty much tied up with Hanna-Barbera
yeah.
and Jay Ward actually. And so he did a lot of great characters later. And if you're out there and you don't know what we're talking about, Elroy Jetson, that's Dawes Butler.
That's
That's pretty much the
that's
Beanie voice.
that's Beanie's voice.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And so thank you. Thank you for
Sorry for
coming.
talking so much, but that is a problem I have.
That
Yeah.
is what I want, for
Okay.
heaven's sake. But we do need to schedule a one again whenever you're maybe a month from now.
Sure. We'll figure it out. There's a lot of stuff coming up, including Comic-Con. Um, if you're still taping, I would like to plug cartoonresearch.com. That is my blog. Every day there's some really cool, it's been there for, over 10 years, and there's a ton of interesting information about classic animation. Cartoonresearch.com.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Rich. I want to encourage people to share this. There's a lot of information here that people want to know about. Like, subscribe, and comment. That's how we get more people interested in the heroic voice. Jerry, have a wonderful weekend.
You
Thank you.
too.
We will do this again.
Thank you.